I was a college student at the time. It was a Friday night, so my friends and I decided to hit up a bar near campus to unwind. We had a good time, a few drinks, some laughs, but as it got late, I told them I wanted to head back to the dorm. They weren't ready to leave yet, so I decided to book an Uber by myself. I didn't have much cash left, so I chose a shared Uber to save a few bucks. When it finally pulled up, I got in the back seat. There was already another guy sitting there, and the driver gave me a look that made me feel like I'd done something wrong just by getting in. I wasn't exactly sober, so at first I didn't think too much of it. But as we drove off, the guy sitting next to me kept staring, and then he started scooting closer. I asked him to move over, but he just kept sliding toward me like he didn't hear a word. I looked at the driver in the front seat, hoping he'd say something, but he didn't even glance at us. That's when the guy next to me reached into his pocket and pulled out something that looked like a cloth or rag. He kept fiddling with it, and my gut told me right then it was probably soaked with something. I felt panic rising in my chest. The car was slowing down as we approached a stop sign, but it didn't look like the driver was actually going to stop. I knew I had one chance. As the car slowed just enough, I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and threw myself out onto the side of the road. I landed hard on my hand and rolled onto the shoulder. My wrist felt like it was on fire, but at least I could still run. I scrambled up and sprinted straight into the woods by the roadside. I hid behind a big tree, barely breathing, listening for footsteps, but they didn't follow me, thank God. While I was crouched there, my phone started buzzing. My friends were calling, wondering why I hadn't made it back yet. When I finally felt safe, I made my way back to the road and called another Uber. This time, I made sure it was legit. When the new driver pulled up, he was this older guy with a kind face. He took one look at my scraped-up hand and asked what I was doing alone at 1 a.m., half in the woods, looking like I'd been mugged. He offered to take me to the hospital, but I just wanted to get back to campus. He told me I needed to report what happened. I did, and when the police looked into it, they found out the car I jumped out of was an Uber, but the car had been stolen earlier that night. Who knows what those guys would have done if I hadn't gotten out when I did. Since then, I always double-check the license plate and driver's face before I get in, no matter how late it is, no matter how tired I am. I'd rather be careful than end up as another story on the news. It started off as just another day on the job. I'd been driving since the early afternoon, nothing out of the ordinary. Around 6 p.m., I got a ride request. The pickup wasn't far, maybe 5 minutes away, and the fare looked decent. Without thinking twice, I accepted it. The location was a quiet, half-empty parking lot behind a strip of small shops. Not the kind of place that usually raises alarms, but a little tucked away from the main road. When I pulled in, I saw a man standing. He was dressed casually, staring at his phone, looking like your typical passenger. I slowed the car and started to stop, ready to unlock the doors. But just as I shifted into park, something caught my attention, a rustling sound from the trees at the edge of the lot. Out of nowhere, 3, maybe 4 other men emerged from the tree line. They moved fast towards my car and surrounded my car. My heart jumped into my throat. They started banging on the windows, tugging at the door handles, trying to force their way in. I froze for a second, confused and terrified, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My brain was still trying to catch up with what was happening, whether this was some kind of joke, or something far worse. Instinct kicked in. I reached for the gear shift, ready to slam it into reverse and get the hell out of there. And then by sheer luck, red and blue lights lit up behind me. A police cruiser, cruising the main road nearby, must have spotted the chaos. It pulled in fast, siren screaming. The moment those guys saw the flashing lights, they scattered. Total panic. Some took off back into the trees, others ran down the alley behind the shops. The man who'd originally been standing there, the one who'd looked like a passenger, bolted with them. The cruiser screeched to a stop beside me. 2 officers jumped out and immediately gave chase. Moments later, more backup showed up, 2 more units. In the end, they managed to catch one of the guys right there in the lot. The rest disappeared into the dark. An officer came to my window, calm but alert. He asked if I was all right, if anyone had gotten inside the car. I was shaken but unhurt. I told them what happened. They took my statement and assured me I'd got lucky. They just happened to be driving by at the right moment. After they let me go, I sat there in my car for a few minutes before I could even start the engine. My hands were still trembling. I didn't finish the shift that night. I drove straight home, locked the doors, and just sat in silence. I still don't know what those guys were planning. I've stopped trying to figure it out. All I know is, that night changed the way I work. Now, before I head to any pickup, especially one in a quiet or isolated spot, I take a good look around. If something feels off, I cancel the ride. I work as an Uber driver. Usually, I finish my shift and get home by 8 p.m. sharp, but that night I was running late because of the heavy rain. The roads were half flooded, and visibility was so bad I had to drive extra slow. As I was finally heading home, I reached this 3-way intersection I always pass through. On one side of it, there's an old cemetery. This cemetery would look spooky even during the day. That night, through the rain on my windshield, I saw someone standing near the intersection. It was a woman, alone, completely soaked, her hair stuck to her face and shoulders. For a moment I just sat there, wondering what she was doing out there in that weather. I honked lightly and rolled down my window a little, though rain started splashing inside. I inched the car closer and asked, "Madam, are you okay? Do you need a ride?" She didn't say a word, didn't even lift her head. I felt a bit uneasy, but I wasn't about to leave someone stranded like that in a storm. So I said, "If you want a ride, get in." She slowly nodded, just once, then opened the back door and got in without saying a word. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She was sitting stiff, staring down at her hands in her lap. Trying to break the silence, I asked her again, "Why were you out there? Where do you need to go?" She didn't respond, she was just kept staring down. The rain was pounding on the roof, the wipers were squeaking back and forth. A minute later, I asked again, "Madam, where to?" She didn't say anything, just slowly lifted her arm and pointed through the window, back towards the cemetery. I looked out at the cemetery gates, squinting through the rain, smiling, then turned back to the rearview mirror to ask her what she meant, but the back seat was empty. I swear to God, the door hadn't opened, the car light hadn't turned on, nothing. The seat wasn't even wet. It was like nobody had been there at all. I sat frozen behind the wheel, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The rain suddenly felt louder, heavier, like it was pressing me down into the seat. When I finally managed to snap out of it, I drove straight home. I didn't stop for signals, I just wanted to get as far away from that cemetery as possible. Since that night, no matter how late or how much extra distance it adds, I never take that intersection again.